облака, по руслу протекает послушная река. Но ты человек, ты сильный, смелый, своими руками судьбу свою делай. Иди против ветра, на месте не стой, пойми, не бывает дороги простой.
This is Dmitry Kalinin, an ordinary Soviet boy, 11 years old. Born in the era of exceptional engineers and creators, he enters a new reality, marked by a deep crisis in the technical fields of production. It's the early 90s, but the magazine's modelist constructor and young technician have already done their part. He is curious.
We are now in Uvarovo village. My grandfather and grandmother lived here. I came here for summer. Before that, I lived in Moscow, but I like it here more. We did all sorts of things. When I was about 12, my neighbor and I decided to build a hang glider. I looked it up in the Constructor magazine. And since I immediately understood that an inventor shouldn't test his own inventions because that's risky, I found a volunteer to be the test pilot. That was Alexey, my neighbor here. He's a year younger than me. We found a small ledge, laid out some straw, did everything by the book, followed all the safety rules. Alexey got a running start, jumped and flew past the straw. I didn't expect him to fly that far. Still, the structural strength was unfortunately poorly calculated, and as a result, Alexey crashed, hurting his face just a little bit. He didn't stop being my test pilot. After watching Jacques-Yves Cousteau's fascinating documentaries, we decided to take up diving in order to explore the underwater world of the local lake. As a scuba apparatus, we modified a Soviet gas mask. We reworked the check valve and attached a thick garden hose to the exhale port. This hose was attached to a piece of styrofoam so it would float on the surface. And that's when Alexey refused, saying, water isn't for me, I'm not going to dive. So we found Maxim. I told Maxim, everything will be fine. I dive myself, but I'm a bit heavy and use up too much air. And as a weight to achieve negative buoyancy, a stone was tied and hung around Maxim's neck. Everything would have been fine, but when diving deeper than half a meter, Maxim didn't have enough strength to suck in air. The weight also got in his way. Well, in short, Maxim swallowed a good amount of water, but he survived. He was a bit upset and didn't take part in our experiments anymore. When I was a kid, I actually had a rather interesting nickname. They used to call me Bomberman, and that's because of my fondness for pyrotechnics and things like that. I won't go into detail about my interest in pyrotechnics. I really don't recommend it to anyone, but I have to admit it was a lot of fun. I remember the first time I lost consciousness. I wake up and my mom is looking at me, a bit shocked. My childhood was very exciting, not without injuries. I got hurt a little. God spared me from any serious harm, at least as far as I can tell. It's a miracle I survived my childhood. As a result of all my antics, some grandmothers forbade their kids from hanging out with me. But everyone was drawn to me. We did interesting things here. I like making the village a better place. We do it for beauty, for ourselves, for the people. There used to be a lot of weeds growing. I bought myself a Chinese tractor and plowed it all up. We sowed grass as a lawn. I even ride the mower myself. It's kind of relaxing. You ride along thinking about your own stuff. It's really nice. So we do plantings, we set up lighting. Then we made a beach for people. At first people would throw trash there, but gradually, when everyone saw it was nice and clean, they started taking care of it themselves. A lot of people come to swim in the summer. It's becoming more civilized, so to speak. There are no conflicts at all. Made small fountain shaped like an alien from stainless steel. Maybe a kid with a lightsaber would steal it, but nobody touches anything. Our neighbors ask us, why are you doing all this? Who needs it? I say, do you want to live in filth? I was negligent, which led to some tragic consequences. I lost my left hand, and my right one was badly injured as well. There were some other injuries too. My intestines were pierced, my eye was injured, and my eardrums were ruptured. The Big Bang Theory has its roots deep in the distant past. Robert Grosseteste, in his influential treatise on light and the origin of forms, described the birth of the universe as occurring in a tremendous explosion, followed by the gradual crystallization of matter, from which everything in existence was ultimately formed. Edgar Allan Poe described the beginning of the universe from a primordial particle, by the will of God. God's will manifested as a repulsive force that split the primordial particle into atoms. The atoms gradually spread out through the vastness of space, after which the repulsion ceased and attraction began. The Big Bang is not an explosion in the classical sense. It is not the ejection of fragments and pieces of matter from an epicenter into pre-existing space. The Big Bang is precisely the formation of this space. When I started coming to my senses in the ICU, all battered, I began to realize this. I thought, okay, I have problems with my eye. Well, I thought, even without one eye, I can already see well. Do I have my thumb and pinky on my hand? Yes, I do. That's not bad either. Well, I thought my guts will heal. They promised that in about a year they'd stitch me up. I feel pretty crappy, but oh well. I asked them to bring me my laptop. And with one eye looking, poking at the keyboard with one finger, I started just dealing with routine stuff. There was a lot to do. And that gradually pulled me out of my depressive state. I understood that things would get better. I remember on about the 5th day, my attending doctor helped me stand up. I realized when I was standing, I was so happy. I thought, wow, I'm actually standing. I can even take a couple of steps. As long as your brain is working, it means you're alive. When I got home, a bit of depression started to set in after all. Maybe it was from taking too many painkillers over time, or maybe it was from a variety of different things. I remember beautiful snow was falling, and I also love snowmobiles. I go outside and I suddenly felt so sad. My neighbor comes over and says, we're about to go out on snowmobiles with the guys. And I said, take me with you, I can't sit here anymore. Just so you understand, at that time I weighed 72 kilograms and I looked kind of pale and bluish. Dim, what's up with you? How are you going to ride? I said, I'll figure something out. So we went together and they carefully put full protective gear on me, a complete full turtle suit, and then attached a sturdy stainless steel hook to it. I put all that on so I could hold on to the snowmobile. I remember riding, the snow was so nice, but I was just moving along calmly. It was hard for me and I thought, what a joy, I'm alive. I just realized that life is beautiful. I had already written myself off, but it was like I had come back to life. I got the idea that I could start bringing in young, promising guys with fresh knowledge. Engineers need to be provided with decent living conditions, allocate budgets for certain things, form teams so that they themselves are responsible for them. Basically, to find people whose conscience is the best supervisor. For many projects, I provide a decent salary and a place to live, and then an option from the project. The main funds go directly to the engineer. Once we finish building our own photo design bureau, it will become a place of attraction. We will also try to create a technology hub. 2 buildings, each 1,500 square meters, built. In general, the whole concept is to develop projects, make prototypes, and then set up production not at our own facilities. To focus purely on design documentation, project development, and producing a trial batch. I think launching the Design and Engineering Bureau will be more interesting since everything will be together and working conditions will be good. I was really surprised myself when I organized the competition. There were a lot of worthy people with interesting projects, quite well-developed ones. For example, there's Alexander with his scooter over there.
I decided I would make the kind of scooter I really want for myself, just go all out, you know. That had a power of 12.4 kilowatts and could go 96 kilometers per hour. For this purpose, I had to develop a cooling system that even now has no analogs. After riding the scooter for half a year, I decided that it could be made even better. A version 2.0 of the scooter. I realized, of course, that I wouldn't have enough money for that. So I decided to sell the first prototype. Fortunately, selling the prototype turned out to be quite easy. It felt like, since the first prototype was such a success, as soon as we built the second one, that would be it. We'd instantly become super successful and start churning out scooters like hotcakes. But things turned out completely differently. And that's when I realized that creating a product is not even half the battle. You also have to know how to sell it. And I decided that I never should have gotten myself involved in all of this in the first place. Honestly, I wasted a total of 3 whole years of my life on this stupid, pointless toy. Damn, I really should finally get my act together and actually get a real job, something meaningful. They didn't really pay much there. I worked for about a month and a half and completed a 6-month plan. I realized I don't want to commute to work. It's awful. I decided that something needed to change. Completely by chance, I stumbled upon a video where some guy was sitting by a fireplace very casually talking about how he was about to hold a contest.
So, ladies and gentlemen, let's now move on to the inverter projects. A lot of inverter projects were submitted to the contest as well. Some of them, as I was warned, are just blatant copies of open source projects from the internet. Well, we're not exactly stupid people.
It was Dmitry Pavlovich, actually.
Someone writes to me and says, "I'm Alexander. I have a ready-made project here. It's this super scooter." Alexander had a great approach. He posted a promo video, all the information, and immediately called Sanya, saying, "Let me come over and show you everything."
I came with the scooter, and Dmitry Pavlovich was really impressed and asked, "What do you need so you can focus on this and not get distracted by other stuff?" I said that I was working at my job here. He was like, "What job? Forget about that. Why do you need a job? Whatever you need, just say it. Equipment, spare parts, anything you want. Hire people, do your thing."
He was really surprised. We talked for literally 2 hours, and the next day he quit his job.
It turned out to be comfortable working with Dmitry Pavlovich. Indeed, when you don't have to worry about where to get money, you can fully dedicate all your time to the project. I set up a small workshop and realized that I needed at least one assistant. That was Alexey, a guy from my city as well, from Yekaterinburg. Without Lyocha, I really wouldn't have managed.
At the moment we are producing the first batch in scooters. 4.8 seconds to 120 kilometers per hour. I think there are huge prospects in this. Right now we're actively developing this area.
A new batch of scooters is currently awaited in the Emirates.
There was a swamp here, so we turned it into a pond. It was our first time designing a dam. I had never done anything like that before.
1 centimeter is 5 meters in scale. So for example, our road comes out to 1.5.
It turned out that we have a professional surveyor on our team. This is Alexey. His first higher education is in metal cutting machine management, and his second is in mining engineering. Basically a geodesist, a surveyor. And he explained everything, that what I was thinking was all wrong, that you can't just throw down soil, you need clay. So now we know how to build earth dams.
This morning I was writing to everyone in the group chat, hyping everyone up. I'm like, hey, Andrewka, excavator guy, where are you? Am I running 15 minutes late or what? Faster.
The vegetation holds everything together.
I can't.
Somehow it's just, look, do you see the slope at what
Angle the grass has grown? That's how it turned out, just broke the grass like that.
we dug here the same way? And the grass grew on its own. There will be more similar design bureaus of different directions with workshops around here. We'll need to add social infrastructure like a kindergarten and so on. We'll create a huge geocontour, 16 kilometers long, to extract low potential heat from under the lake for heat pumps for the future tech hub. Right now, the heating circuit here is 4 kilometers, but we want 16, so that it's under the water. That will make it much more efficient. I think it's going to work great.
There's an isolated system. It has some initial states. If we then observe the evolution of this system over time, it will naturally become more chaotic. In other words, chaos will increase, entropy will increase. Something didn't exist, and by overcoming the entropy of our world, we create something more orderly than what was there before. In other words, creativity is the opposite of death. So in order to enjoy life, we need to create and share our creativity with others. Well, creativity needs an audience. That's why we look for ways to share or to experience someone else's creativity in good condition. And we make do with a kind of substitute in the form of sound recordings. Talented people, sound engineers, try to convey the creative idea to the listener as fully as possible. But unfortunately, on this path, an obstacle arises in the form of imperfect acoustic systems. A very good, high-quality acoustic system is necessary, one that won't introduce any additional distortions, extraneous noises, or the like. In other words, the sound should be as transparent and pure as possible. Only then can we say that we have truly heard what the creator wanted to capture. Most likely, very few people have heard of such an acoustic system. A system like electrostats is quite an exotic and fascinating one. In fact, the fundamental principle of electroacoustic conversion was actually discovered even earlier than our more traditional electrodynamic drivers. The essence of this technology is that electrostatic forces are used to reproduce sound. That is, there is, so to speak, an acoustically transparent capacitor, inside which a very thin mylar film is carefully placed and charged in a specific way. The polarity is set with a high voltage. And when we apply a varying voltage to the acoustically transparent capacitor I mentioned, the film begins to synchronously attract and repel. Current flows through one plate, current through the other. In this way, we reproduce sound waves. It so happened that one of the people who listened to the electrostats asked, "What's going on with that project of yours?" Nothing was happening with the project. And without asking my permission, he wrote an email to Dmitry Pavlovich.
A person writes to me and says, I have a friend, but he's very shy. He invented the coolest, most amazing acoustics. Honestly, there's nothing like it in the world. I thought, oh, well, what are you talking about? Because a lot of people write to me about perpetual motion machines and all sorts of things. Why am I needed here? Why doesn't he write himself? Well, he's shy, so I ask for his contact and I call him. I say, Ivan, I have a question right away. To make acoustics sound good, do you need super cables made of ultra pure copper for $10,000? The main thing is resistance. That's all there is to it. He said, if I hook up hangers, you won't be able to tell the difference in sound. I said, all right, now let's continue the conversation. You have these audiophile hang-ups which honestly aren't that interesting to me.
Well, you know, the tangibility and the physical presence of the sound in the lower register of the piano is somehow just really not quite articulated enough, you know. So, excuse me for asking, but how exactly are we supposed to work with that situation. I can certainly explain all of these things in simple, clear, and straightforward language, but let's make sure we don't fall into some kind of audiophile nonsense or confusion. I don't understand what warmth of the bass even means.
He says, Dmitry, why don't you come over, have a listen, and then decide for yourself if it's interesting or not. I say, well, actually, my ear hasn't fully healed yet. I have a hole in my eardrum, so I might not really get it very well. But I went into that studio, stood by the monitor, turned it on. I was kind of blown away. You have to hear it. The sound turned out really focused and awesome. That's it for sure. We have to do this. I say, Vanya, what are you up to these days? I'm fixing phones, but I can't solder anymore. I'm just exhausted. Come over, just drop everything and move here. Live here, work here.
We had a good talk right over the phone. So basically we met up after that and he kind of took me in.
Honestly, I thought all this would go faster. He says, Dima, everything's good, but there's no bass. We need to make broadband plugs. There's a theory, maybe it'll work. And so basically we dove headfirst into new OKR. There were a total of 500 different models, but we just couldn't manage to get the bass out with a proper amplitude.
As it turned out, it's a very difficult task because the prototypes themselves have actually been working for quite a while. But in my experience, it's not enough to just get the technology to work. To bring it to people, you'll have to put a lot of effort into the final polish. We spent 2 years on this and now we've come to an understanding. Now we're going to make the first trial batches of electrostatics, but considering that he was working alone, it's a significant mistake, you know, to have this desire like I'm going to make the best acoustics in the world. And then first of all, you start to feel bad because at some point you realize that it's really impossible. And secondly, I think about this, you know, what if I actually did make it, then what? That's why there needs to be a whole product line. There should be acoustic systems that are bigger, smaller, more expensive, and more affordable. Each one will have its own unique sound character. Of course, we'll try to have our own signature style, but each will have its own special touch. And there's no way around it, you can't do without it. It's probably impossible to make it absolutely perfect in every conceivable way. On the other hand, however, it would truly be inexcusable to create or produce a product that does not have any real substance inside, just for the sake of making money.
Money is merely a tool for creation in our everyday lives. There's no point in just sitting on it. Philosophically, I'm a hedonist utilitarian. The essence of life is to experience pleasure for yourself and those around you. A person is judged good or bad by whether they experience this pleasure and give it to others. Everything else is just fluff. A lot of people say I'm too kind. But even from a business perspective, see it this way. My kindness actually brings me more profit. Some people might deceive me, but overall I'm still in the black. It's more fun to live this way than to suspect everyone. It's better to give people chances. I don't see any problems with it. You just need to quickly understand what you might be getting into. I prefer doing business in a slightly more positive way. Some people might think that's selfish, but I want to leave something behind after I'm gone. I like it when I've created something to look at it and think, wow, I did a great job, this is so good. That's the kind of satisfaction I get. You are my children and I am your father. The structure with Cooperon opened not so long ago. Everything came to life here, started working. I really liked it when everyone started working in the design bureau. It's a big collaboration. Even people working on different projects, when they have coffee, all they talk about is how to do things, how to do them better. They help each other a lot. If there's any problem, the collaboration solves it. Some of the projects here are becoming self-sustaining. What I especially liked recently is that none of the machines are ever idle. We have a lot of orders for metalworking and for prototype batches. Right now, everyone needs everything, but you can see that import substitution is really working because there are no other options. And the team working on the machines is completely paying for itself. They've become profitable. Now we needed to expand our staff for metalworking. The last person who joined us was Alexey. He's only 20 years old. He's a very good professional and he helped his colleague improve as well. We have a woman working as a machine operator. Her name is Alisa. It seems like we're all managing well. For any innovations to be implemented, more technocrats need to be in charge. Otherwise, there will be a lot of administrative overhead. An engineer should be creating the product. He shouldn't have to worry about food or anything else like that. In general, they should be provided with decent living conditions so that their wives and children are happy, and then everything will work out. Yes, you can see the spark of inspiration in people's eyes right away. When people are passionate and fight for their project, a lot of interesting things can be accomplished. You just need a bit of money and time. People with that fire in their eyes. Sometimes I come in at 2 in the morning and there's always someone here working. I don't force them to work that much, but sometimes they just want to finish something up so they can go to sleep with peace of mind. All over the world, engineering specialists are very narrowly focused. Here, a person might be doing 3D modeling, calculations, and operating machines all at the same time. That's absolutely normal. I really like technocratic management, where you don't have to bloat the staff too much. And for a proof of concept, a 3D person will actually make it happen. Given our circumstances, if you compare it to the West, it turns out to be very inexpensive. I try to get people to understand that living just on a salary isn't very good. I'll provide you with a certain average standard of living for now, but you need to fight for more. Please, take charge of the project. Because I can't manage everything myself, I just don't have enough time for that. Of course, there are big risks here, but it's better if even 30% of the projects become commercially successful than none at all. I believe these risks are justified. I can take risks even if something doesn't work out, but here, things are really turning out well. It's just beautiful. Here, it's forbidden to consume alcohol. Of course, a person can take a day off and go to the city. That's their business. Many have even left the path of alcoholism, so to speak. Because I said, you see, either we drink or we work. I like that. Many people are involved in some kind of sport. People are really changing, I'll be honest. For the better. If you enjoyed watching this video and would like to see more content like this, please subscribe to our channel. Subscribing ensures you never miss out on our latest uploads and really helps support us so we can make videos for you. Just click the subscribe button below. Thank you for being part of our community. Two and a half years ago, my beloved wife dragged me to the gym. She said, "Dim, you need to do this." I thought, how am I going to work out there? I thought everyone was looking at me. It made me feel kind of uncomfortable. But by the second session, I got into it. I even bought a sports prosthesis so I could lift the barbell. And now, well, we go to the gym 2 or 3 times a week. It's going pretty well. Since I don't have a hand, the bones weren't connected, so it didn't hurt. Lifting more than 30 to 40 kilograms. And at some point, I look and see I'm bench pressing 100 kilograms, and it doesn't even hurt. Then I sit without my prosthesis, and these 2 bones of mine have fused together with cartilage. So I ended up with a single club-like bone. It doesn't hurt anymore, so I need to keep moving forward. I absolutely don't feel deprived or defective. It's literally all in your head. Allah.
Akbar, the great Mughal emperor of India, known for his wisdom and leadership.
About a year ago, with just a few prototypes, we went to Dubai, visited a variety of exhibitions, and even made it to Saudi Arabia. People there were genuinely interested. For Russia, the product is really expensive. Over there, people aren't even particularly surprised by the high price. They're interested in the specifications Yes, the scooter accelerates to 100 kilometers per hour in 5.5 seconds. Does it actually go 100? No way! And it looks impressive too. There was this one time, a grandfather came up to me with his grandson, pointed at the scooter and said, "I want to buy it. How do I pay you?" I replied, "Well, with a prepayment, the scooter will be ready for you in about 3 months." He said, "No, that's too long to wait." Actually, that's what really pushed me to produce a whole batch, send it all to the Emirates and sell everything directly from a warehouse over there. Representatives from Formula One came to see me. They came up with the idea of electric scooter races. We brought a few scooters to Dubai, so would you like to take a look at them now? They were really impressed. I would even say not surprised, because it turned out they had an idea, besides racing on asphalt with racing scooters, to also create another league for off-road racing. And they were wondering what kind of scooter could be used for that. And here I am with my scooters, no modifications needed, just as they are. They fit their needs perfectly. Right now they're waiting for me to send them a few scooters so they can hold a trial stage and see how it goes. After everyone had left, a real group of enthusiastic Filipino friends showed up with some really cool electric vehicles. We chatted with them and we suggested organizing a dart race because, you know, it looks nice and all, but how does it actually ride? I won against them, but during an overtaking maneuver, I ended up colliding with another racer on the track. The speed was approximately around 82 kilometers per hour. I decided to fall off the scooter. We had some really tense and quite challenging conversations with the race organizers. In Dubai, there are cameras on every corner, and the police even fined the organizers a decent amount because one of the participants, though I wasn't even racing there, was causing such chaos in the city.
When I was riding a mountain snowmobile with a prosthesis, I broke it right away. And I started to think, well, first of all, it costs money. Secondly, I thought it wouldn't last long with me. Why not make my own? At first, I had one with aluminum fingers. It broke after about 6 months. After an unlucky fall, the fingers got bent. The fingers were aluminum, so they weren't very strong. We decided to make titanium ones. We remachined thick cheeks out of titanium because they would get ripped out when... If you fall or ride a mountain snowmobile and don't have time to open your hand, everything just gets ripped out. Basically, it's been through a lot. Relying
on Dmitry's experience using his previous prostheses, it became clear that, in general, the overall strength of the construction is the key factor. And based on the valuable knowledge we gained during the testing process, we developed a new one, which was specifically intended to be mass-produced.
Gradually, through various modifications, we achieved this one, which I'm wearing now. But this can be installed inside here. It has carbon fiber cheeks to make it lighter. The motor is 2-stage with a planetary gearbox. The overall gear ratio is about 1 to 1,000.
During operation, a weak point in the design was discovered. This is something all similar prosthetics have. When the fingers experience impact loads, the gears break. We came up with the idea to create a kind of safety mechanism. We called it a friction clutch, where the intermediate gear of the first and second stages is not rigidly fixed relative to each other, but connected through a friction mechanism. And when there is a sudden impact on the fingers, the friction clutch slips.
That's to, protect the tendon. Not long ago, we made our own myosensors with low-noise operational amplifiers, and it actually worked out. I thought it would be some kind of really complicated Newton's law thing, but our electronics guy German figured it out. The eyes are afraid, but the hands do the work. The main thing is, we have proportional control. I can smoothly close and open it. You can pick up objects by hand. It's actually pretty hard to do. Well, I mean, if there wasn't proportional control, look, I just squeezed it very lightly. I can also release it gently like this now. And in principle, you can squeeze it, of course. The only thing is, of course, when working with a prosthesis, since there's no sense of proprioception, that is, the sense of position in space. No, you have to rely solely on visual control. Of course, I could try it now. I've never tried doing it with my eyes closed. So right here, I think the glass is here. No? Let me try again. Okay. Oh, I got it. Wow. But it's kind of difficult. Because I've been wearing it for a long time, I'm used to its length. That is, I can touch my nose like, that proprioception test. In the future, we want to create artificial proprioception, and then everything will be just fine. What else is good about this prosthesis? It's that it's very strong. I weigh almost 100 kilograms, and I can do push-ups on it. It might seem simple, but in reality, doing push-ups on a stump at first was not the most pleasant experience. But now I've trained myself, and it's fine. With this prosthesis, I drive a car without any problems. Also ATVs, snowmobiles, and so on. And our prosthesis will be suitable for transcarpal amputation. That's like mine when only the hand is missing. Because prostheses from many companies don't match in length, and a person naturally wants their arms to be the same length, otherwise it throws everything off balance. The way I wear the socket, which is held in place by this kind of liner, this kind of rubber band, is actually quite rare. Usually they make it with the elbow. But I decided against that because you lose this kind of mobility. Mobility remains. Everyone is afraid that it might get pulled off, but actually, it fits quite well, meaning I can pick up a chair and lift it just fine. This is epoxy, it weighs about 6 kilograms here. I can easily lift it, I can even carry it. Not many prosthetic devices can really do that. Nothing ever falls off, and I can easily grab things. I can even walk. By the way, I haven't tried doing that yet. Basically, everything in this prosthesis is ours except for the motor. We could make our own motor later too, but for now there's no need. This one works pretty well. We're already working on certifying it as a medical device. And I think it will go into production.
I used to have a sketchbook back when I was a kid. I used to draw in it for my first little projects. I came across it recently, and turns out there was a little drawing of a quad bike in there, basically. Can you imagine? So apparently that's just how it always works. It leads you to where you want to go. By education, I'm a mechanical engineering technologist. I was always more drawn to cars and, well, any kind of moving machinery. I'm from eastern Ukraine, not far from Luhansk. That's where I was born and in fact spent my whole life. I came here, of course, out of necessity. It used to be an industrial region where if you just worked, you could definitely make a decent living. Of course, that's no longer the case now. I was subscribed to Dima's channel and heard about the engineers competition. I just wrote to him personally, he read it and replied, and that's how we got acquainted.
He had what kind of idea? To make a modular electric ATV out of flat elements cut by laser, so that the body would be assembled like egg cartons.
When we started, there was a competition project for the engine, and the inverters were already available. They seemed to be ready, so the ATV was built around them. But after thorough testing, it turned out the engine was still a bit raw and needed further refinement. The inverter that had been developed for our needs was in a somewhat ephemeral state. So we had to look for a solution again. Sasha, who works on the scooter, helped me find a solution. It was a controller from a scooter. And then the motor started to fail. The heat dissipation was still poorly organized and needed improvement. There were a lot of modifications to be made, and time, of course, wasn't unlimited. I realized I couldn't rely on this kind of setup anymore. I just needed to find a ready-made solution. The main advantage we originally planned was the frame, which has a sealed internal volume, creating a hermetically enclosed space. But now that's no longer relevant because there's only one engine and it distributes power through drive shafts, and with drive shafts it's impossible to achieve hermetic sealing. We made some kind of mistake, and as a result, the inverter got a bit scorched, with special effects no less. This led to having to overhaul the battery. The cells themselves survived, but the bus bars and other components had to be resoldered. The inverter needs to be replaced. 2 years after the project began, the ATV ultimately started running, now with the engine that it will most likely keep.
As always, there are some nuances. Right now, we're about to start testing the second version. And Kirill kept persuading me for a long time, saying we should make something like a truck. It doesn't need a big budget. I said, so Kirill knows how to lobby for his interests, huh? He says, Kirill's been bugging me, so I'm doing it. I want to sincerely thank you for being here and for taking the time to listen. Your presence and attention are truly appreciated, and I am grateful for your support. Thank you so much. And Carson, should I help? Maybe I should just climb in somewhere, or perhaps just try to get inside. Come on. Stop. Here you go. No. It's really, honestly, just really bad in there. Yeah. Oh, this is just awful.
I decided to build a truck to transport the ATV and as a separate product. As a separate product, there was the question of what would come out of it. All side-by-sides are mainly used off-road for some agricultural needs, for medical purposes, and so on. Which specific niche we would end up in was not clear at first. It was built much more simply than the ATV, meaning I immediately bought ready-made suspensions. The frame is large and space frame type. I didn't make any blueprints. I built it from my head and improvised as I went along. And
He really, in just 100 days, they welded it together from pipes, and I thought, well, it will move. But when I sat on our Kroshila, it turned out to be such a thrill. When you ride it, it has air suspension, incredible off-road capability, the way it broke through trees. And now we're continuing with the tests. Just so you understand, this truck, which carries 2 tons, accelerates from 0 to 100 in 3.8 seconds. With a top speed of 150 kilometers per hour. You don't need specs like that. They're a bonus.
at first, the vehicle was undoubtedly impressive initially. It seemed powerful enough for our purposes, but during testing, we discovered some issues. Insufficient cooling for the motors and moments when there wasn't enough power on each axle. So the decision was made to replace the motors with more high-torque ones. When we installed more powerful motors, the acceleration was around 4 seconds to reach 100 kilometers per hour. The vehicle weighs 18 tons, so it kept breaking the drive shafts. Our drive specialist, Pavel, ended up reworking 38 drive shafts. He did the calculations. After that, the problem was solved. The vehicle started driving completely differently. We realized that we could create something interesting, something that lets you really feel emotions when driving off-road, on country roads, in the forest, or wherever else. And in some ways, it actually turned out to be more interesting than the gasoline version, because when you're out in nature, it's nice to drive in silence and not pollute the air with exhaust. That's why we ourselves really like the electric version. The vehicle can be used for recreation in various areas, jeep tours, or for some personal needs. That doesn't stop it from being a truck. It can easily carry 2 tons and handles it perfectly well. You can transport an ATV, a buggy, or even use it as an off-road tow truck. At the moment, I'm building a camper that allows you to go out into nature and bring along a bit of comfort, which is essential these days. Across fields and rough terrain, the vehicle moves just like a boat. The obvious solution is the topic of access. It made the vehicle very comfortable, especially with 3 axles. It's an unusual feeling. You drive quietly across the field, gently swaying, nothing rattles or shakes, and it still does 0 to 100 in 4 seconds. Since the vehicle is new and undergoing testing, we don't know its limits yet, so we're actively searching for them. With my head not normal. The steering wheel is a classic Nardi, Italian.
Broke the steering wheel.
Even a finger. When you see that the machine is moving, you need to run a test. With the ATV, everything is more or less clear, you ride it yourself, it's fun, it's fine. But with the truck, you ride as a group. It's always more fun with a group. The generator of crazy ideas works in geometric progression, so every time the truck goes out, they end up driving it into some impassable mud or somewhere this kind of vehicle really shouldn't go. Naturally, this leads to adventures. The first such trial happened when Igor wasn't coming to the water and we drove into a small ford, but it turned out to be very treacherous. A mud trap. The truck ended up getting stuck there, broke a drive shaft in the process, and unfortunately didn't have enough driven wheels to get out on its own. We didn't have any rescue equipment with us at the time, so we simply couldn't pull it out of the river. The next day the guys came back with a heavy-duty chain winch and managed to pull it out of the thick, sticky mud.
When I was having problems with my wrist and was rehabilitating, so to speak, my right hand, I used the ATV method. After all the surgeries, my fingers were stiff and physical therapy wasn't helping. So we went with the guys to the Kola Peninsula, and at one point I took an ATV and said, let me take it for a ride. It turned out that I rode 200 kilometers over bumps. The pace was fast, I had to steer really hard, and the human body is such that when your brain is overloaded, other organs feel it too. You don't really feel the pain because you have to keep working all the time. And after 3 hours of riding, I caught myself thinking that my arm started working again. Because of the constant vibration and tension, the ligaments stretched out properly, and right after that, everything started working for me. Since then, that's what I've been doing.
Every rescue operation is a kind of adventure. It always attracts people from the design bureau. We all go together as a team and lend a helping hand to the truck whenever it needs it. Or yeah, and not just for the truck, we have all sorts of fun adventures. In any endeavor, it's important to be aware of the price you're paying. If you want to carry out a project, you'll drop out of life for several years, and there's absolutely no guarantee that you'll succeed. The process is creative, and the emotional atmosphere is important.
Tense relationships with your wife, rare visits home once every 6 months. My family is all there, and naturally, and having a long-distance relationship, trying to help somehow, it's all difficult. We agreed that she would stay there and I would stay here. And of course, that doesn't make the relationship any better. Now, due to circumstances beyond our control, we're probably facing a crisis that's getting close to our financial ceiling. Well, to put it bluntly, we're running out of money.
A lot of money is being invested in R&D, but given the current situation, it's hard to finance all of this from other projects. So now I have to set deadlines for myself when I'll just have to record the losses and shut down part of the project. I hope it doesn't come to that, but you have to understand, you have to be realistic, that in order for something to survive, something else will have to be closed. I gave Kirill 2 months, told him to figure it out however he can. I understand that all of this is promising, but it's a long way off. He needs to quickly bring in outside investment. I just can't keep funding it out of my own pocket anymore. You're asking tough questions. I don't know, maybe I'll fire them all tomorrow.
Right now, it's important to keep the project going. That's the first thing, right? All other decisions will be based on this. Giving up is the dumbest thing you could possibly do. Especially since so much effort has already been put in. Naturally, it needs to be brought to some kind of result, otherwise it's all pointless. There are never any perfect conditions, there will always be limiting factors and problems, and it will always come down to time. Time is absolutely critical. Right now, we need to release 2 models, an ATV and a truck, and start showing them to the public, meaning taking them to exhibitions and attracting attention in one way or another. If we consider the space-time continuum, that is, space plus time together, then everything appears to be deterministic, meaning that everything is essentially predetermined. However, at the quantum level, it may interact or it may not interact depending on the situation. It's just a purely probabilistic story, which means that making a decision might actually be an illusion, and the brain is an analog machine in an analog world. There's such a thing as noise, thoughts that grab you and carry you along, and we're simply a part of all this, in the flow. Still, there's always some kind of micro-impulse that activates this thought. Where does this micro-impulse come from? Is that supposedly your free will or not? Or is free will, so to speak, this raging sea of chaos, the chaotic emergence of thoughts, and your will is simply to either submit to it or not, to resist or go along with it, which is a kind of higher function of the brain. That probably is what will is. But this is already so complicated that it could just drive you crazy. But we are simply not capable. We are not capable of understanding the full complexity of this world. I hope, nevertheless, that we'll see this project through to completion. All the questions are my responsibility. I decided to install a heat pump. I read about it. There are heat pumps that work on the reverse Rankine cycle. So why not make something like that ourselves? It's expensive and somehow very interesting, even though he didn't understand anything about refrigeration equipment.
So in the garage we built our very first heat pump, and then we really wanted to take it to an industrial level. But it actually took a lot of time. There were just so many different nuances involved. 4 years went by as we developed everything, selling in small batches with varying success. It also took just a year and a half from the idea to the actual factory. The idea itself is worth nothing. You have to push it into production, and that's where the huge problems start. Let's put it this way. If the idea is good, everyone fights for it, but the complicator is still there. Well, cover your hair, I'll show you now. Yes, it surprises me. You're drinking by the machine. As far as I can tell, the only issue is money, that maybe the investments won't be enough somewhere. But you can make it work, you just have to do something. I mean, there's money everywhere. You just need to understand what to do with it, how you're going to carry all this out moving forward. The power of a place as a unique and compelling point of attraction naturally draws in all kinds of people, and you can often fill in your missing skills by consulting and communicating with others. Just by the simple fact that we're all together in the same shared space, if the whole idea works out as planned, it should be a very effective and productive place. The plans are huge. We want to create a technology hub here, somehow scale all of this so that people are not just tinkering but actually developing technologies and producing small batches in various fields. Mainly we want to focus on electric transport and machine tool building. That's really a big job. But I think why not? Sooner or later, something will work out. Well, we'll handle part of it ourselves, and then we'll look for investors for the tech hub. Once we get the building permit, all the equipment is ready, and off we go. That's the idea. Every person in life, let's say, wants to accomplish something. He gathered people around him, he gives them opportunities.
As for engineers, they want to realize themselves, they want to earn money, they want to achieve success and also gain recognition. Like any inventor, they want their inventions to be used to receive some kind of acknowledgement. There are people who rush to the machines, who are genuinely willing to stay, who are ready to work 24/7, and simply just to achieve results, they tell him about their project. Really, they want his attention like children, to prove to Dima that he didn't give them a chance for nothing, and that he specifically chose them for a reason. Some people are just wasting his time, and some will actually show results. I haven't seen him strictly control anyone. That is, you have to be your own judge in this. He has complete trust, and in the process of communicating, he draws conclusions about what kind of person you are. So if he treats you the same way, he will work with you. He will go all the way with you. After all, these are just the first steps in this direction. KB won't stop at just these projects and initiatives. There could be dozens, even hundreds of them. I think people will hear about him and others will make offers. Right now, someone is sitting at home, maybe at their kitchen table or in their living room. They have blueprints in front of them and know exactly how to do it. They have the knowledge and the skills, but they just don't have the resources they need to get started, to bring their project to life. Let me be honest, you can envy him, you can underestimate him, but really, if a person is a genius in their own way, truly exceptional, well, in my honest opinion, I can say this. It's unlikely that Dima started all this just to become rich. It's like a movie without a script. We, as viewers, will be watching it unfold before our eyes. But the truth is, no one really knows how it will end. He's truly one of those people you genuinely love and really admire, because you're glad to know him. Things are only going to get more interesting from here.
Своими руками судьбу свою делай. Иди против ветра, на месте не стой. Пойми, не бывает дороги простой.